Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends. 2015 Thursday night edition of Nightcast. Heavy rainfall left at least 5 people dead in central China's Hubei province. TV showed footage of a house in Yingxiang being washed away in floodwaters yesterday. Evacuated from their homes in Hubei and Jiangsu provinces. And here's some raw footage just showing you some of the scenes from that, friends. For now. We do have a story related to China, though. This next story, we go to Hong Kong, where legislators today in Hong Kong rejected a controversial Beijing-backed election reform package that sparked mass protest last year. The reforms were to give Hong Kong the right to vote for its leader for the first time in 2017. But candidates would be vetted by a pro-Beijing committee that pro-democracy activists labeled fake democracy. Juliana Liu has this report.
This was the moment when a history-making vote veered sharply off script. Dozens of pro-China lawmakers walked out in protest when their request for a delay was refused. Their leaving meant a plan to change the way the city elects its top leader received only 8 yes votes. A group of mainly pro-democracy lawmakers voted no. The plan was vetoed by a much wider margin than expected.
But this time, it proved that we can unite to defeat the proposal. And we are glad that this happened. And, we can unite in the future to fight for the democracy for the people of Hong Kong.
Pro-China legislator Regina Ip, who looked stunned by the turn of events, said the walkout was unplanned. They had wanted to wait for an absent colleague.
The veto was to be expected. We all expected the motion to be vetoed, but the inability to vote is really deeply regretted.
No matter the real reason for the earlier drama, democracy campaigners waiting outside Parliament were ecstatic about the outcome.
I am very excited. All the people here cheered when we heard the proposal was vetoed. We have been sitting here for 2 days for the result of the vote. This is the result that we want, so everyone is very happy.
This is the only remaining offshoot of last year's umbrella movement. The activists here may be celebrating, but with the proposal defeated, their next chief executive will be selected by a small group of people largely loyal to the Communist Party. No one knows when other reforms will be offered. For now, the city's political future looks as uncertain as ever. Juliana Liu, BBC News, Hong Kong.
And friends, on to Greece next for a critical story from today's news that will impact how the EU eventually shapes. Greece needs to seize a last opportunity to reach a deal with its creditors, the head of the Euro group, Jeroen Dijsselbloem, has said. Eurozone finance ministers have met to try to prevent Greece defaulting on its debts in less than 2 weeks. The meeting ended today with no agreement, and an emergency summit of leaders from Eurozone nations has been called. Greece could be forced out of the single currency and possibly out of the EU as well if a deal is not reached. Robert Peston reports.
Greece and its Premier Alexis Tsipras, still in the Eurozone family, whose head most would say is Angela Merkel of Germany. But how much longer in this clan after today's supposedly last-ditch meeting of Eurozone finance ministers and the IMF to prevent Greece defaulting on massive debts and possibly tumbling out of the euro? What happened?
Regrettable to say that too little progress has been made in the talks between the institutions and Greece, and that no agreement as yet is in sight.
Greece's finance minister, Yanis Varoufakis, here chatting with Christine Lagarde, head of the IMF, insisted he brought a comprehensive solution to the meeting. She didn't spot it.
We can only arrive at a resolution if there is a dialogue. And for the moment, we are short of the dialogue. So the key emergency, in my view, is to restore a dialogue with adults in the room.
Greece has a staggering 320 billion euros of government debt, equivalent to around 180% of its national income, or GDP. So its debt burden is well over twice that of Britain. Its immediate problem is the huge repayments it has to make in coming weeks, including more than 1.5 billion euros to the IMF at the end of June and around 3.5 billion euros to the European Central Bank and other central banks on July the 20th, leaving a further 14 billion euros to pay before the end of the year. Greeks have been withdrawing billions of euros from their banks because if Greece fails to pay the IMF, at that point there's a risk the European Central Bank would turn off the life support provided to Greek banks.
The fact that people are taking their money out of the bank is that they are very worried about what the future might bring. And this again leads us to the point that it would be strongly in the interest of Greece and Greek people to reach that agreement, and the responsibility for that lies with the Greek government.
And any kind of mending of the Greek economy, any end to penury, would evaporate if the Greek banking system were to completely seize up.
We are dangerously close to a state of mind that accepts an accident. And I urge my colleagues not to fall prey to this state of mind. We can forge a good agreement.
Greece belongs to Europe. Well, thousands of Greeks gathered outside the parliament in Athens to urge the government not to quit the euro. Greece's Prime Minister will meet his Eurozone counterparts yet again on Monday to see if a rescue is possible. Tonight, that looks like a hope, not an expectation. Robert Peston, BBC News.
And friends, the BBC's James Reynolds also has a report from Athens on the effect of the financial crisis is having on businesses, and he's got some further details on the increases of withdrawals from cash machines.
In central Athens, the cash points do steady business. Quietly, over the past week, Greeks have withdrawn more than 1.5 billion euros. That's more than £1 billion. But there's no rush, no panic.
We can live even with exit of the Eurozone. A solution is possible. If we don't find the solution, we'll see when you do. It's not the end of the world anyway.
I'm very optimistic, and I trust our new Prime Minister. I do.
Economist Panagiotis Petrakis has monitored the pace of bank withdrawals.
If you're not in a bank run, are you in a bank walk?
Yes, it's something like that. But the walking has been increasing rapidly those last days. So we are not sure if it's walk or run. We'll see.
These are the banknotes this country left behind when it joined the euro. The Greek drachma is now a relic for sale in antique shops.
You don't have to go far to find signs of Greece's past. You've got some of its old coins here. There's also a very famous warning which was printed about 70 or 80 years ago and posted in shops. It shows a very happy man on the left. He sells for cash. And a rather miserable looking man here on the right. He sells on credit. The Varvakios market runs on cash. This country's government now runs on fumes. If it cuts spending, it may get more loans. But right now, Greek cuts are made by its butchers, not its politicians. James Reynolds, BBC News, Athens.
Friends, last night I told you that I would play a video tribute to the victims of the balcony collapse in California, and then we ran out of time. I'm going to close tonight's show with that. Yes, there is news out of South Carolina today. Someone has been arrested for the shooting at a church, but I'm going to save that story for the days ahead. I'll explain more about that later. Let's go to this. We're going to close tonight with this tribute to the victims of the balcony collapse.
In the streets that were to be their home for the summer lie tributes to Irish students killed in California. High above the flowers is the apartment where they were all attending a 21st birthday party, and the little that remains of the balcony, which collapsed, throwing 6 people to their deaths. 5 of the young people were from Ireland. Emer Walsh, Lorcan Miller and Olivia Burke, like Nikolai Schuster and Owen Culligan, were all 21 years of age. Also killed was 22-year-old Ashley Donohoe, who was Olivia's cousin. The Irish have a tradition of travel and long links with America. Like thousands of others, the students were taking advantage of summer work visas, making this a grief that's shared between nations. Thousands of miles away, across the Atlantic, a vigil's been held here at a church in Foxrock in South Dublin. Prayers have been said for the students who have been seriously injured, and messages of support offered for the families of those killed.
I knew Emer. Emer was very lively, friendly, outgoing, bubbly, sparkling sort of person. Her parents and her brother have gone over to they're heading out about now. I did. They're just devastated. There's nothing really you can say to them, other than that we're here for them.
Some of the students went here to University College Dublin, and today their friends have talked of their heartbreak. Some of the other young people who were injured remain in hospital, and they are seriously ill. Some are said to have life-changing injuries. At buildings throughout Ireland, the tricolour is flying at half-mast. A day of mourning in this nation, while the families of those killed and injured fly to another country, where an investigation is still trying to discover what happened here in Berkeley. Chris Buckler, BBC News.
All right, and friends, having mentioned it, I'm just going to say this regarding news stories that can stir up racial hatred and memories of things from the past and things of the present that would tend to cause alienation of affections between peoples of different culture, different races, different color, who otherwise get along real wonderful. But the God of this world is behind the events of this world, and he can take a small thing and unfortunately it blows up big it can blow up big in the way that people react to one another. And the God of this world is very skilled at creating gaps between people and stirring up hatred between people. And that's unfortunate, because otherwise, as I just said, a lot of us get along pretty well otherwise. Friends, that's it for this Thursday night report. I'm sorry I was a little bit late tonight, and I'm cutting short tonight. I went, and for those of you who've been praying for me on an extreme sprained ankle situation I've had, thank you very much. One of my church brethren friends called me up from Vance, Tuscaloosa County. I drove down there today and picked up some crutches that he had for me. And I tried those out, and things got worse. I picked up a Aaron's rod, or a shepherd's staff, and I do pretty well with that. I'm up walking, by the way, and the pain is greatly diminished. Thank you for all the little tips on hot and cold and what to do and things like that to reduce swelling, reduce pain. The first day's pain was so immense, if God hadn't intervened, I think I would have screamed and just rolled over and died. But thankfully, right about the time some of you responded that you were praying, boom, big relief. Now, not completely, because God wanted me to know I need to take care of some things, and he wanted me to understand when other people have certain things, it's not always light. Sprained ankle can be extreme, and I did have some pre-existing things related to my right foot, where I had a numbness in one of the toes and a what they call, as I've been studying this, by the way, I try to not make this program about myself, but because I'm your host, and if something happens to me, well then, I can throw the show off a little bit here and there, and I needed those prayers, and I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for those of you who watch and appreciate the program, who prayed for me. Thank you very much. I did have a situation I read about where what they call, it's called well, there's several terms for it, but a snapping ankle. I've had that for some time, and I understand I should be doing something so I've been alerted by this extreme pain ankle thing, and as I get older, you need to do more to take care of yourself, and God wants us to do what we can. Now, where we can't and fall short, and we cry out, hard and strong to Him, I've seen God intervene mercifully and say, well, you couldn't, so here, I'll help you. But He expects us to eliminate the causes that might bring these kind of things back on. And I have a condition that could leave that right foot subject to being sprained again if I don't do something to strengthen the things that are causing what they call that snapping ankle. Some of you will know what I mean. Others will say, what's that all about? Well, anyway, you can Google it or internet search it, and there's lots of information available on that in these days of increased knowledge, which tells us these are the latter days. That's one of the two signs of this being the latter days. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for this Thursday night. We're off Friday and Saturday night. We'll be back again, God willing, and the Creek Don't Rise Sunday night, friends, with the current news from the days that we're in between tonight and Sunday, here on Nightcast. And I'll be on another channel, the Sabbath TV channel, for those of you that are familiar with that and tune in there. I'll be on that on Sabbath, the Saturday Sabbath, the seventh day of the week Sabbath. But for tonight, friends, until next time, this is your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on COGTV.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the COGTV.org video archive.